Radha Krishna Bho Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giri Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai ki Jai Jamuna Mai ki Jai Guru Dwarka Dham ki Jai Swami Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the all glories to the Thank you very much. Jai Radha Madhava.
Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamaiham Dadati Saputantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vesavansya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sivishakhan Vidangscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shannavadi Paschatadeshatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Siva Hari Shiva Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krantaraja Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So let us have a small recapitulation of the main points that we discussed yesterday. So anyone can start. We can just refresh our memories.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Go on.
Yeah, welcome. So, refreshing our memory, as you say, we got to the point when Lord Vishnu have to intervene with the misunderstanding between the doorkeepers and the sages. So before it could appear physically that this Lord Vishnu, the the aroma of his lotus feet mixed with the tulsi leaf. They perceived the aroma, and that alone changed them physically and also spiritually. So it was explained that previously they were impersonalists, but by the time they now perceive this aroma, they became a personalist. So then when Krishna came physically, he intervened. So his intervention was such that it was neutral, because first of all, he accepted the fault. He took the blame to himself. The offense created by the doorkeepers. So he
Krishna took it upon himself.
Yes, he took responsibility for the offense. Then
because they were his servants, and the example he gave that was that if there is about the contamination of the skin by a spot of leprosy. Remember that?
Yes, I remember. That contaminates the whole body.
So he said, one or two of my servants may be out of line. So that reflects on me, who was so kind. And okay, anyone else? Salika Prabhu, what do you remember?
For me, yesterday, two things was very prominent. The devotee, the gatekeepers not understanding the mood of their master, like Vishnu, and then therefore committing that aparat. The Lord took the offenses upon himself, because as a result of their inattentiveness or not understanding the mood of their spiritual master, or Lord Krishna himself, who is their master. So that led them to making the offense. So that was something new for me in understanding. And the second thing was the discussion we had around, what was that?
The offense was because they were dealing with devotees. One may not be fully in tune with the desire of the spiritual master for devotional service. But when it comes to dealing with the devotees, if we are concerned about how our spiritual master wants to deal with some devotees, and then we're supposed to intercede in between and we don't understand, then we may create offense. So that was an offense, like they were stopped. Now, they were not blaspheming, criticizing or anything, but in a sense it was. Now, is it, what is it? It is an offense to stop their service. But was it an offense to them? They took it as an offense to them. It is a fine line. It may be a seva aparad, because they didn't do anything unbecoming to the brahmanas, in a sense. And they didn't do it because they were just slightly out of tune with the desire of their own boss, of their own Lord, but they didn't do anything really unbecoming. And then we will see that even Lord Vishnu took it like that, Lord Vishnu, who took it like that, and now he's going to present that. He's going to present that. So as we progress, we can become more in tune with the desire of the spiritual master or the desire of Krishna and how to serve. And those things we can actually study and learn from Shastra, what Krishna likes and what Krishna doesn't like. But there is a major part of it from 6 to 11 was actually glorification of Brahmanas. Glorification of Brahmanas, 5 verses glorifying the Brahmanas, right? And your Brahmanas, I'm very pleased with your Brahmanas. So that was a very major part of that discussion of Lord Vishnu. The reason that Lord Vishnu was respecting them, because he respects the Brahmanas, right? So he was saying because of that. So then after that, what were the Kumara's status of mind? state of mind. The Kumara's state of mind were a little bit sort of confused, because they were not satisfied by the Lord's lovely and illuminating speech, because they couldn't understand what was his kind of mood. So if you go deeply into it, it's like they reacted to Jai Vijay not knowing the mood of the Lord in their service, and therefore they were stopped. The Lord would have welcomed the Brahmanas, but they didn't understand that. But now also, because they were bitten by the serpent of anger, even the Lord was very lovely, very sweet, because that, it's like you have actually had a very serious bout of anger. And then even when you calm down, you feel, why did I get angry? Or why did I say things like that? Why did I do that? You feel like that, right? I should have just kept my mouth shut. And a devotee who is an introspective person, he will think, if I just kept my mouth shut and I hadn't said anything, all this not would have escalated. So they were thinking like that, because the Kumaras, in a way, they have committed Vaishnava aparadh. Why? Because because of the aparadh to Jai and Vijay, they could not really appreciate fully the sweetness of the Lord's discourse towards them. Please unmute. Mute. Everyone mute, please. Because of what they had committed some offense to Jai and Vijay, they could not really appreciate. Their heart was not completely, they were like, don't know, okay, like that. So that was the situation of the Kumaras, which is explained in text 13. But the fact is that because they showed a great repentance, right? So the non-removal of the anger shows a difficulty in removing an offense to the devotee. So there was still lingering pain caused by that unwelcome anger. And we all experience that. That's very fine lessons in this section here, right? So because then in text 14, we see that the Kumaras, they could not comprehend the Lord's excellent speech. Although they heard attentively and they were pondering on it, and they were great jnanis, because it has momentous import. It's Guru Artha and profound significance. It was Gambhiram, Agada Gambhiram. It is said in text 14. So now they were wondering for a long time whether the Lord had favored them or had condemned them. Remember in the last verse, the Lord says, but if you really truly Brahmana, then in a very soft way, he said, one should not be acting like this. So they're not so sure whether the Lord is pleased with them or is condemning them. He's favoring them. He's favoring the Brahmanas in the general sense. So if you identify as a Brahmana Jnani devotee, then you would feel like, okay, the Lord is speaking in my favor. But then when the Lord slightly turned, you following everyone? When the Lord slightly turned, taking the side of Jai and Vijay, then they get a little bit confused. Okay. So then after a while, they concluded, no, the Lord is happy with us, because the Lord was really kind to them. So therefore they become joyful. They started to rejoice, their hair standing on end, and they feel this Lord's yoga maya and the ecstatic symptoms by the pleasure of the Lord. So now the Kumaras will reply. So the text 16 is what we, right? They will reply. So from text 16, the sages said, Rishaya Uchuhu, okay? Navayam Bhagavan Viddam Stavadeva Chikirshitam Pito Me Nugrahas-cheti Yadadyaksha Prabhashashe. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. Not easy to understand the Lord's intention because he's a very grave person, right? For even though you are the supreme ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. So that the impression they were getting as if that the Lord has done something good, they have done something good for the Lord, were actually, they were impulsed by this anger and they had given a curse to two of the devotees serving under the care of the Lord in Vaikuntha. So when they speak to the Lord, they're saying, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. So Prabhupada's purport explained this point. The sages could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is above everyone, was speaking as if he were in the wrong. The Lord took it upon himself as if he were in the wrong. Therefore, it was difficult for them to understand the words of the Lord, because visibly they had done something wrong. But the Lord is speaking as if he was in the wrong. They could understand, however, that the Lord was speaking in such a humble way, right? Just to show them. So they could see that the Lord is being very auspicious, compassionate, merciful to them, right? So, text 17. Brahmanasya param devam brahmanaha kilate prabhu vipranam deva devanam bhagavan atma devata. O Lord, you are the supreme director of the Brahminical culture. You're considering the Brahmanas to be in the highest position is your example of teaching others. Actually, you are the supreme worshipable deity, not only for the gods, but for the Brahmanas too. So the Lord is a supreme worshipable deity, right? So he was speaking highly of the Brahmanas. But then the sages are saying, but the highest example is you, because you are actually worshipable, not only for the Devatas, but you're also worshipable for the Brahmanas. So purport, in the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a cause of all causes. There are undoubtedly many demigods, the chief of whom are Brahma and Shiva. Lord Vishnu is the Lord of Brahma and Shiva, not to speak of the Brahmanas in this material world. As mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Lord is very favorable towards all activities performed according to Brahminical culture. All the qualities of control of the senses and mind, cleanliness, forbearance, faith in scripture, and practical and theoretical knowledge. The Lord is a super soul of everyone. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said the Lord is a source of all emanations. But it is also the source of Brahma and Shiva. Okay, where is that in Bhagavad Gita? The Lord is the source of all emanations. Okay, please, devotees, Jiv Jago, where is that? (10.8). Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pavartate. Okay, aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvam pavartate iti matta bhajanti mam bodhabhava samandita. I'm the source of all spiritual and material world, and everything emanates from me. The wise who know this worship me with love and devotion. Okay, so that's number 1 verse of the Chatushloki Gita, 4 verses in Bhagavad Gita, 10.8, 10.9, 10.10, and 10.11. Everyone should know these 4 verses by heart. Huh? So text 18. Tata sanatano dharmo rakshati tanuvistava dharmasya paramo guyo nivikara bhavan mataha. You are the source of the eternal occupation of all living entities, and by your manifestations of personalities of Godhead, you have always protected religion. You are the supreme objective of religious principles, and in your opinion, you are inexhaustible. an unchangeable reality. So the Lord is a protector of religion. Sanatana dharma, and is protected by the Lord, Rakshati. The Lord protects dharma by protecting the devotees. How does he protect dharma? First, he enunciates the principles of dharma. He comes from time to time to realign things, but the main thing are the ambassadors of the dharmic principles of the devotees. So he comes to protect the devotees. He favors the devotees and annihilates the demons. And that way he protects dharma. Okay? And this is explained in the purport. The statement in this verse, Dharmasya Paramo Guhya, refers to the most confidential part of all religious principles. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion of Lord Krishna is, his advice to Arjuna is, give up all religious engagement and just surrender to me. 1866. Sarva dharman parityaja mamikam sharanam braja. This is the most confidential knowledge in executing religious principles, surrendering to Krishna. So in Srimad Bhagavatam also it is stated that if one does not become conscious, Krishna conscious, after very rigidly executing one's specified religious duties, all his labor in following so-called religious principle is simply a waste of time. Please quote this verse for me. Prabhupada is again paraphrasing a verse, that if one applies himself to following the rules of Varnashram but does not please Krishna, then his whole occupation is simple waste of time. Swanustita pumsam vishaksena kathasuya notpadayad yadiratim shamaevahi kevalam. And whatever occupational duty one is involved, swanustita pumsam vishaksena kathasuya. Notpadayad yadiratim, if that doesn't bring attachment to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, then it is simply waste of time. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, 2nd chapter. Okay, so in the Bhagavatam also it is stated that if one does not become Krishna, I've read that here. Here also the sages confirm the statement that the Supreme Lord, not the demigods, is the ultimate goal of religious principles. There are many foolish propagandists who say the worship of the demigods is also a way to reach the supreme goal. But in the authorized statements of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita, this is not accepted. So by worshipping the devatas, we actually only, rotate ourselves in fruitive activities and going up and down, sometimes higher planets, sometimes lower, sometimes human form of life. Right? And generally those who worship demigods, their material desire, their heart is full of material desire. That's the reason that they worship the demigods. Okay, chapter 7 again. I think that's 19 or something. So if you worship the demigods, because you have material desires completely filling your heart. So if one worship the demigod, they can reach the demigod's planet. But if one worship the Supreme Personality of God, they can enter into Vaikuntha. Right? The result of the devotional service is not temporary. They are sanatana, as is the achievement of heavenly planets by worshipping the demigods. Achievement of heavenly planets is material. But sanatana, devotional service for the ultimate Supreme Personality of Godhead, is not temporary, it's permanent. The sages wanted to stress that although the Lord, out of his causeless mercy, says that he worshipped the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, actually the Lord is worshipable not only by the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, but also the Lord is worshipable by all the devatas too. Okay, so any questions or comments? Let's participate, so make class lively.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhuji?
So I think the sages, they so much appreciate how Lord Vishnu intervened, even though they felt guilty. But even though Lord Vishnu is even worshipped by the Brahmanas, Vaishnava, and even the demigods, but the way he treated them, they appreciated it so much. Because ordinarily one would have expected that he should blame them. How can someone just come to your abode? Imagine, Prabhu, I came to your abode. I didn't tell you I'm coming, only for you to hear that I'm fighting with your security guards. Then you came out and saw that it's me. I mean, I was hungry. Even I've already caused them. In a way, you can't be too happy. So the sages, the reaction of Lord Vishnu, they were really impressed, and that's why they are talking about how great, even though it was so great, but it was.
Yeah.
Treated them
The only thing is the Lord, they didn't invite them. They wanted to go and see the Lord. They were young children. They just wandered around the world. So they wandered into the first, second, third, up to the seventh gate of Vaikuntha to try to go and see Lord Vishnu. Yeah. So let's follow on text. I'm reading now, text 19.
19.
Tarantihi anjasa mrityum nivritaya dhanugrahat yogina savavantim sid anuguyeti yatparai. Mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nations by seizing all material desires. It is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. Okay. Please mute, Prabhuji. Rasavan, what's the point of having it unmuted? Okay, Hare Krishna. So, mystics and transcendentalists, by the mercy of the Lord, cross beyond nations by seizing all material desires. So it is not possible, therefore, that the Supreme Lord can be favored by others. By others means those who are not taking to the path of coming in contact with the transcendental nature of the Lord, right? Therefore, they are not favored by the Supreme Lord. So purport, unless one is favored by the Supreme Lord, one cannot cross over the ocean of nations, of repeated birth and death. Here it is stated that yogis or mystics cross beyond nations by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are many kinds of mystics such as Karma Yogi, Jnana Yogi, Dhyana Yogi, and Bhakti Yogi. The Karmis particularly search after the favor of the demigods. The Jnanis want to become one with the Supreme Absolute Truth. And the yogis are satisfied simply by the partial vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So remember, yesterday when I was talking about the Vadanti Tattva Vidas verse, then we know that the partial realization of the Supreme Absolute Truth by the Brahma Jnanis or the impersonalists, they understand only the eternal nature of the Lord in Brahman. The yogis have come to understand the partial understanding of Paramatma, which is a partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, plenary expansion, the partial plenary vision of the Supreme Lord. But ultimately by oneness with Him. What does that mean? Can anyone say something on this? And the yogis are satisfied simply by partial vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, and ultimately by oneness with Him. Shalika, what is your opinion on this? The Brahma, no, you're not quite there with us. So the impersonalist, what is the destination of the impersonalist?
The Brahma Jyoti.
Okay, so what is the destination of the yogis?
Paramatma, realization.
What is the destination?
Okay, their destination.
Siddha Loka.
To become one
if they have perfected,
they want to become
Siddhaloka
one with
is
the
the material world. If they have perfected, they don't go to Siddhaloka, you do not.
They want to become one with the Lord.
The yogis don't want to become one with the Lord. If they want to become one with the Lord, then it is exactly equal to impersonalism, but they are meditating on the partial representation of the Lord as Paramatma within the heart, and they end up actually, they want to merge with Paramatma, but Paramatma does not have a permanent abode in the spiritual world. He is the executive of the material world. So where do they go? They end up in Brahman. But if the yogis develop a sense of devotion and affection of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they can be promoted to Vaikuntha Lok. In Shantaras, because they have no relationship, but they have some affection, some devotion, but they have no relationship with the Lord. They don't identify themselves as a servant. So the yogi, if he's Dharanashraya, we will see that, or maybe you also studied that in the third canto, in the first part. If he's Dharanashraya, if they're meditating on Paramatma, and they have some affection for him, and they have understanding that he's a Lord in the heart, then they progress towards liberation. But if they want to merge with Paramatma, they lose everything. They actually end up going to Brahman. Because in between Brahman and Vaikuntha Lok, there is not a Paramatma Lok. Follow me? There's no Paramatma Lok. Now, Siddha Lok is only a material planet. So that is no indication of attainment of eternal destination. So it is said here, the karmis particularly search for the flavor of the demigod. The jnanis want to be one with the Supreme, absolute truth. And the yogis are satisfied simply by partial vision of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Paramatma, and ultimately by oneness with him. But if they go to this idea of oneness with him, then they lose it. But if they go to the idea of, my dear Lord, I realize you in my heart, I am your servant, then they can move forward. That is by only devotion. So the yogi's meditational practice is only successful by a proportion of bhakti. But without some bhakti, it is not successful. So, but the bhaktas, the devotees, want to associate with the Supreme Personality of Godhead eternally and serve him. It has already been admitted that the Lord is eternal, and those who want the favor of the Supreme Lord perpetually also eternal. Therefore, yogis here means devotees. You follow? So by the mercy of the Lord, devotees can easily pass beyond the nations of birth and death. So in the text where the translation is mystics and transcendentals, mystics means yogis, and yogis here means devotees. That's what Prabhupada is saying. But yogis per se, they have to be sure that they have some affection for Paramatma in the heart. Otherwise, if they want to become one with the Paramatma, then they have the destination similar to the impersonalist.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Actually, let me finish reading this. The Lord is therefore not in need of another's favor, because no one is equal to or greater than him. Actually, everyone needs a favor of the Lord for successful understanding of his human mission. So we all need the mercy of the Lord for success. Okay. So yes, what is your question, Prabhu?
Yeah, and the yogis, do they get to Brahma Loka, heavenly planets, their destination?
Well, they're wanting transcendence. So yogis want to get out of the modes of material nature. They're following the path of Ashtanga Yoga, and they meditate on Paramatma within their heart. But there's two they can fork out to two options. One option is they think, me, I'm situated next to him, I can see myself and I can see the Lord, and me and him, we are together, we are one. That's spiritual suicide. It's finished. But he says, oh, that's my Lord, I'm worshiping him. By the mercy of Guru, just like you will see that example is given about Dhruva Maharaj. When Dhruva Maharaj went to meditate, Narad Muni very clearly told him, you will try to meditate by doing devotion. So therefore he gave him also a set of devotional practices. Chanting the name, following austerity, worshipping the deity of the Lord, and then meditating in devotional service. So then his destination was different. You have to be careful. Because of course he wanted to be involved in fruitive activities. He wanted something to enjoy in this material world. So he had a different inclination. He didn't want to merge in the Lord. So in a way, he is better than someone who wants to merge in the Lord as a yogi, right? So the Lord is therefore not in need of any honor. So actually, everyone needs that kind of favor, but one has to be very clear in his direction. Otherwise, my spiritual master said to me, he said, if the yogi wants to become one with the Lord, everything is finished, is destroyed, because he gets absorbed in Brahma Jyoti. Yes. Okay. Hare Krishna. So what is your question? No, okay. So text 20. Yam vai vibhuti rupaya tyanu velangnir artharti bhi swasirashadriti padarenu dhanyar pitangri tulasi navadhamadamno lokam madhubratapate rivakamayano. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, the dust of those of whose feet is worn out, is worn on the head of others. The dust of whose feet is worn on the head of others waits upon you as appointed, for she is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees, who hovers on the fresh ref of the tulasi leaves offered at your lotus feet by your blessed devotee. Can anyone try to explain this? I hope that the devotees are following. Some of you are actually participating with some other gunas, because it contaminates others. If you fall asleep, then it contaminates the others to follow. So the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, right? The dust of whose feet is worn on the head by others. Those who desire the favor of Lakshmi, they actually take the dust of the lotus feet of Lakshmi upon the head. But that same Lakshmi, she's anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees. Please give me an explanation, and I will ask names so that you don't wake up. So let's say, okay, Tamal, what does that mean? Lakshmi is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees.
Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Yes. We read in this passage that bees always they are humming in the lotus flowers. So means they have been chanting the holy name of the Lord.
They're humming around where? That's, be precise. They're humming around and circling the flowers of the garland of the Lord, which he's wearing on his neck and on his chest. So the king of bees are humming around the chest of the Lord, right? So that place there is taken up by the king of bees, who's made the garland of the Lord their temple. That's what the acharyas say. Now, Lord Vishnu wants actually She is always situated at the lotus feet of the Lord, and she is waiting to get orders to come forward and be situated, even though the Lord has offered her a place, symbolic place by Srivatsa, position of Srivatsa. It is a place of Lakshmi. But the garland of the Lord on the neck of the Lord is encircled by the bees. So then how will Lakshmi go up to the Lord's chest? So she is anxious to secure a place in the abode of the king of bees, who hovers on the fresh ref of tulasi leaves offered at your lotus feet by some blessed devotee. Right? So sometimes the bees also, they come and hovers on the tulasi leaves offered at the lotus feet of the Lord. And therefore, Lakshmi Devi is kind of, there's bees there. And then sometimes when she wants to also go to the chest of the Lord, oh, there's bees there. So that's what it is said here, that the bees are competing with her service. And when she wants to have some conjugal affection with the Lord, then she says, oh, I can't because the bees there. So she cannot come to the chest of the Lord. That's actually what it is being meant here. So she stays mostly in the Dasya platform. So as previously described, the purport, Tulasi has attained all superior qualities due to being placed at the lotus feet of the Lord. The comparison made here is very nice. As a king of bees hovers over the Tulsi offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. So Lakshmi, who is sought by the demigods, Brahmanas, Vaishnavas, and everyone else, always engage in rendering to the lotus feet of the Lord. Right? The conclusion is that no one can be the benefactor of the Lord. Everyone is actually the servant of the Lord. So let us see what, this is a very beautiful verse. O Lord, you are exceedingly attached to the activities of your pure devotees, yet you are never attached to the goddess of fortune, who constantly engage in your transcendental loving service. How can you be purified? How can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? And how can you be glorified or made fortunate by the marks of Srivasta on your chest? So this is a very, very deep proposition that is being made by the Kumaras. Now the Lord is never attached. Lakshmi Devi is attached to the Lord, but the Lord is not attached to Lakshmi Devi, even though she is constantly engaged in his service. So so it said that, how can you be purified, therefore, by the dust of the path traversed by the Brahmanas? So it's a comparison. Demigods and others, they're worshipping the dust of the lotus feet of Lakshmi, but the Brahmanas are worshipping the dust of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, right? So, Jyoti Swarup Prabhu, please read the purport for me.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
21 purport, if you're still there, read it.
Yes.
Everyone looks a bit tired today.
It is a purport. It is said in Brahma Samhita that the Lord is always served by many hundreds of thousands of goddesses of fortune is in his Vaikuntha planet. Yet because of his attitude of renunciation of all opulence, he is not attached to any one of them. The Lord has 6 opulences: unlimited wealth, unlimited fame, unlimited strength, unlimited beauty, unlimited knowledge, and unlimited renunciation. All the demigods and other living entities worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, just to get her favor. Yet the Lord is never attached to her because he can create an unlimited number of such goddesses for his transcendental service. The goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is sometimes envious of the tulsi leaves which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, for they remain fixed there and do not move. Whereas Lakshmi ji, although stationed by the chest of the Lord, sometimes has to place other devotee who pray for her favor. Lakshmi ji sometimes has to go to satisfy her numerous devotees, but Tulsi leaves never forsake their position. And the Lord therefore appreciates the service of the Tulsi more than the service of Lakshmi. So when the Lord says that it is due to the causeless mercy of the Brahmanas that Lakshmi ji does not leave him, we can understand that Lakshmi ji is attracted by the opulence of the Lord, not by the Brahmanas. Benediction upon him. The Lord is not dependent on anyone's mercy for his opulence. He is always self-sufficient. The Lord's statement that his opulence is due to benediction of the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas is only to teach others that they should offer respect to the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, the devotee of the Lord. Hare Krishna.
So everyone is attracted to the opulence of Lakshmi and whatever Lakshmi can offer to them, right? And it is not by, and Lakshmi Devi does not feel that by the benedictions of the Brahmanas that she is able to serve the lotus feet of the Lord. She is in a competitive mood, so to speak, with Tulasi Devi, because Tulasi is always on the chest of the Supreme Lord, but Lakshmi Devi has to go here and there, and she has to leave her service to satisfy his many devotees who are asking her favors. So therefore, Tulasi's service is more permanent in the sense than Lakshmi Devi's service, right? So the goddess of fortune, sometimes may feel envious of the Tulasi leaves, right? Which are placed at the lotus feet of the Lord, but remain fixed there. Whereas Lakshmi Devi, although stationed by the chest of the Lord as Srivatsa, right? Sometimes has to please other devotees and she has to move. So she doesn't require the favor. She doesn't feel she requires the favor of the Brahmana's lotus feet. But the Lord feels that, and he had stated that I require the Brahmana's favor. But actually the Lord is independent and the Lord doesn't require anyone's favor, but he favors everyone else. That's the understanding. So text 22. Dharmasya te bhagavatas triyuga tribhisve hadbis chara charang idam vijadevatartham nyunamritam tad abhighati rajastamascha satvena no varadhaya tanuvanirasya. O Lord, you are the personification of all religion. Therefore, you manifest yourself in 3 millenniums. So the word you used here is Dharmasya te Bhagavata. Triyuga, Tribhisve, Triyugi. So you are the personification of all religion. Therefore, you manifest yourself in 3 millenniums. So in three yugas. And thus protect this universe, right? Which consists of animate and inanimate beings. By your grace, which are pure goodness, right, and is the bestower of all blessings, kindly drive away the elements of Rajas and Tamas for the sake of the demigods and twice born. So the Lord actually drives away the effect of Rajas and Tamas, okay, and he establishes pure goodness. Pure goodness is transcendental. Generally, Rajogun, Tamogun, and Satogun, they always go together. You cannot separate one from the other. You can have always a mixture of it. Like when you're going like that, the Bhagavatam class is generally a good place to actually invite Tamogun. Huh? Tamogun comes very easily on these Bhagavatam classes. So, but then you wake up a little bit. So, because it is always accompanied by other gunas. So the gunas, you can't separate one from the other. But you can eliminate all 3 of them completely by Vishuddha Sattva or Shuddha Sattva. It is the same thing. Sometimes Shuddha Sattva, sometimes called Vishuddha Sattva. Shuddha Vishuddham Vasudeva Sabditam. Vishuddha Sattva is not pure goodness in the sense like it modes of material nature, which is Sattva Gun, but in its pure state. No. They can never be in a pure state. Mode of goodness can never be just found by itself. Mode of passion can never be just found by itself. And mode of tamas can never be found by itself. They're always competing with each other, and they're inseparable. They're free together. No one is in the state of pure rajas and pure tamas or pure goodness. So when we mean pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva or Vishuddha Sattva, it means actually transcendental. Okay. So let's discuss. Prabhupada is talking about the Tri-Yugi, the principle of the Lord being Tri-Yuga. He appears in 3 millennium, which is Satya, Dwapar, and Treta. And the 4th millennium is Kali Yuga, right? But in the 4th millennium in Kali Yuga, he is Channa avatar, or an incarnation, but it does not appear as manifest incarnation. So he doesn't, why? Because he doesn't appear as a Lord, he appears as a devotee, right? So therefore, he is more or less described as being Tri-Yuga. So Siddhartha Swami describes Tri-Yuga as follows. Yuga means couple, and Tri means free. So the Lord is manifested as free couples by his 6 opulences, or free couples of opulences. In that way, he can be addressed as Tri-Yuga. So some acharyas have given different types of explanation of this. But the word is a personality of religious principles. In 3 millenniums, religious principles are protected by 3 kinds of spiritual culture, namely austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. So austerity, cleanliness, and mercy are present in the 3 ages, and they are diminished by a certain percentage, right? So cleanliness, and in Kali Yuga, there's only a little bit of truthfulness less. So the Lord is called Tri-Yuga in that way also. In the age of Kali, these 3 requisites of spiritual culture are almost absent. There's no austerity, there's no cleanliness, and there's no mercy. Only thing that is left to a point. Give me a minute. Okay. So the devotees therefore prayed to Lord Chaitanya to eliminate their stock of passion and ignorance, the most conspicuous assets of this yuga. In the Krishna consciousness movement, one cleanses himself of the modes of passion and ignorance by chanting the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna, as introduced by Lord Chaitanya. Now, Prabhupada explains a little bit about the 4 Kumaras. Can someone read that part, the last part of that text 22?
The 4 Kumaras were cognizant of their situation in the most of passion and ignorance, because although in Vaikuntha, they wanted to cause devotees of the Lord, since they were conscious of their own weakness, they prayed to the Lord to remove their still existing passion and ignorance. The 3 transcendental qualities, cleanliness, austerity, and mercy, are the qualifications of the twice born and the demigods. Those who are not situated in the quality of goodness cannot accept these 3 principles of spiritual culture. For the Krishna consciousness movement, therefore, there are 3 simple activities which are prohibited, namely illicit sex, intoxication, and eating food other than the prasad offered to Krishna. These three prohibitions are based on the principles of austerity, cleanliness, and mercy. Devotees are merciful because they spare the poor animals, and they are clean because they are free from contamination from unwanted foodstuff and unwanted habits. Austerity is represented by restricted sex life. These principles, indicated by the prayers of the four Kumaras, should be followed by the devotees who are engaged in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So do you have any questions on what we discussed, please? We will go through the... Any questions? No?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Yeah, Prabhuji, in this last paragraph, Prabhupada has said that these three sinful activities, actually, Prabhuji, it's four, there is no gambling here. So why actually these three particular activities is been mentioned here?
Because the idea of Tri Yuga, the Acharyas have explained it in two different ways. Is the Lord appears in the three Yugas, but then there's three qualities of prominently destroyed in the three Yugas. So that's why he's not mentioning, but in also there's fourth principle. The fourth principle is also, no gambling, which destroys truthfulness. Now, the general idea is that truthfulness is the last limb of dharma that is still evidently, but not so evidently really, is still alive, and is still, the last leg of dharma is still standing in the age of Kali. Right? So we are meant to understand that truthfulness is still standing in the age of Kali. Now, how do you explain this? It's a very interesting question. How do you explain it when you see that the newspapers lie, people lie, politicians lie, general people lie, and the mainstream media is doing propaganda and lies? Hitler, he based his whole propaganda machine based on lies and killing people based on lies and untruth. How can you be so sure that actually the last leg of religion, which is truthfulness, is still standing in the age of Kali? How can you explain that contradiction? Please explain. Chitra, you're there? Your name is there?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah. Somebody should go first, then I go second.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yes.
Yeah, my little understanding about the prevailing truthfulness in the face of all these lies is that, yes, still we have the scriptures.
Yes.
Still we have the scriptures.
Yeah, the truthfulness is there because we still have the scriptures. And based on the scripture,
Yes,
we can establish the truth. And from there, we can build up the other three principles. So that's why Prabhupada considered that he will pay deeper importance to the scriptures and translating Srimad Bhagavatam and disseminating the books, because the books carry the truth, the absolute truth. So therefore, by distributing books, which is the absolute truth, then the Lord can give his mercy and we can slowly establish the other principles of compassion, cleanliness, and austerity. Right? So it is important that the truth is in the scriptures. So text 23. O Lord, you are the protector of the highest or the twice born. If you do not protect them by offering worship and mild words, then certainly the auspicious path of worship will be rejected by people in general. So the Lord is Natam Dijokam Phalam Yadi Hatma Gopam. Gopta. So he says, O Lord, you're the protector of the highest of the twice born. And if you do not protect them by offering worship and mild words, then certainly the auspicious path of worship will be rejected by people in general. So very important that the Lord is actually putting so much emphasis in protecting the elevated Brahmanas. Why? Because by protecting the Brahmanas, he will actually protect the path of religion, the dharma, right? And the auspicious path of worship. Otherwise, if the Lord disregards the Brahmanas, then there's no hope for this. You see, we never understand. Sometimes you don't understand things from these different angles. But if you look at this verse here, the Lord is very dear to the Brahmanas, and the Brahmanas are very, very dear to the Lord. But the Lord goes an extra mile, makes an extra effort to protect the Brahmanas. Why? Because if the Lord neglects the protection of the Brahmanas, if the Lord tried to punish the Brahmanas, even when a Brahmana is not doing very nicely in his religious tradition or in his religious practice, the Lord generally acts very lenient and very compassionately. So we can see that in the case of the four Kumaras, he's making a statement that these are Brahmanas. And Brahmanas are the guardian of the Varnashrama culture. And the path of religious principles are propagated. The principles are taught, read, understood, and propagated by the Brahmanas. So the Lord never disrespects the Brahmanas because of that one principle. And in contrary, it is said that if the auspicious path of worship that is protected by the Brahmanas is not also protected by you, then people will disregard the Brahmanas and they will reject everything in general, right? So the Lord is very much biased in a way. He has a lot of bias towards the Brahmanas because of the importance of the Brahmanas. So he said, then certainly the auspicious path of worship will be rejected by people in general who act on the strength and authority of your Lordship. So the Lord sets the example of by his authority, by his strength, and by his utter devotion and his utter protection that he offers to the Brahmana. And if he had done one thing contrary to that principle, people will reject the Brahmanas. Look what Lord Vishnu did in that case, you know. So even in the Vedic culture, so that it is not seen visibly that there is disregard for the Brahmanas, even when the Brahmana commits a crime, in Vedic culture, he's never killed, he's never hung, or he's never ostracized. He's generally exiled. Okay, go away from here. But he is not punished, because if he is seen to be punished, then people will take that as an example. It's quite interesting, you know. He's not punished. Even if he commits a crime, generally he's banished. Okay, go away. And you see, and you see that even when the English were in India, you see in the colonies, when the Indian diaspora was being transported to different parts of the world to do slave work or indenture labor, generally you'll get working class people, coolies, or people from plantation in India, and they would be put in a boat and then they go to different colonies like Trinidad or Mauritius or wherever. But then you get sometimes some Brahmanas. And those Brahmanas were generally those who were rejected by society. So they would be sent away because of certain fault that they had committed. Not always, but sometimes. Sometimes. It's quite interesting. When you study the migration of immigrants from India, you have a portion of Kshatriyas who are generally dacoits, became dacoits, and they were sent. And some of the Brahmanas who had broken some kind of law, so instead of punishing them, they were sent abroad. I have a friend who's made some research on this at the Oxford University and how different families were sent. So I'm speaking from some experience on this. So it's interesting. So even till up to the point of, even when they had the British Raj in India, that principle was followed. So you see so much respect for the Brahmanas. So very important verse this. So I am still on that verse 23. Okay. So please, someone can read the purport for me. Sorry. Yes, 23 purport.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, go on.
Yes. In Bhagavata, it is stated by Lord himself that the acts of character of great authorities are followed by people in general. Leaders of the character are therefore needed in society. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appear in this material just to show the example of perfect authority and who have to follow his path. That injunction that one cannot understand the absolute simple by mental speculation or logical argument. One has to follow the authorities. Mahajan, Gata, Sapanta. Great authorities should be followed. Otherwise, if we simply depend on the scriptures, we are sometimes misled by rascals, or as we cannot understand or follow the different scripture injunctions. The best path is to follow the authorities, the four Brahmanas sages. Stated that Krishna is naturally a protector of the cow and Brahmanas. Go Brahma Hitayacha. When Krishna was on this planet, he set a particular example. He was a cowherd boy, and he was very respectful to the Brahmanas and devotees.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
It is.
So thank you. Yeah, so we can carry on with explaining a little bit on this here. It is said that the Lord, his acts and his character are followed by great authorities. So, and then Prabhupada explains that we cannot always understand everything just by studying scripture. And sometimes there's tarka. Tarka means debates. And pratishta, pros and cons. So by different types of arguments and pros and cons and debates or logical reasoning, we cannot always understand the truth of scriptures. That is a very important point, because the truth of the scriptures is actually contained within the heart of the devotees. And therefore, by serving the devotees or by following the path laid out by the Mahajan, then one can truly understand the religious principles explained in the Shastra. So by just dry speculation, dry study, logic and argument and reasoning, no matter how hard one try, it is very difficult, right? So this verse from the Mahabharata, which is quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said in the verse, Tarko Pratishta Shrutaya Vibhinna. Nasarishiryasya nadam nabhinam. Dharmasya tattam nihitam guhaya mahajanayena gathasa pantha. Dry arguments are inconclusive, right? And different opinions differ from one sage to the other. So simply by studying the Vedas, which are very varied, right? One cannot come to the right conclusion of which religious path to follow and which religious principles to interpret and understand properly. Because the solid truth of religious principles is kept in the caves of the heart of the pure devotee. So therefore we have to follow the pure devotees. So just studying Shastra by ourselves without the help of Vaishnavas and without following Guru and Krishna, we cannot understand, because the Vedas go in so many different ways. So this verse is very important. So this was spoken by Yudhishthir Maharaj in Mahabharata. Okay. So Lord Krishna, he set the example of protecting the Brahmanas in his pastimes. Okay. So just read the last, in the middle, Prabhupada is talking about the Varnashrama system. The Brahmanas, Kshatriya, and the Vaishyas are all twice born. But the Brahmanas are the best. When there's a fight between two persons, each of them protects the upper part of his body, the head, the arms, and the belly. Similarly for the advancement. So, you know, when someone is going to attack you, the most important part of your body that you want to protect is actually your head and your face. So even when there are two boxers or two martial art people fighting on the arena, the one will attack the face and the other one will protect the face, because that's considered the most important. So Prabhupada is giving that example here. Even in a fight, we protect the upper head, the body, and so on. Right? Similarly, in the actual advancement of human civilization, the best part of the social body, namely the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, right, should be given special protection, but mostly the Brahmanas. In the last part of the purport, it is said that unless the system is introduced by the leaders, then human civilization will be lost. So Prabhupada is making a strong appeal for Varnashram system here. So he said this civilization will be lost. When there is no protection and special treatment for persons who are devotees of the Lord, who are highly intelligent in spiritual life, then the whole society is lost. So protecting spiritualists, protecting Brahmanas, thinkers, is of prime importance. It's very, very important. And if it is not done, then society is generally going down the path of oblivion. So if authorities or the leaders of society do not give special respect to Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, and do not offer them not only sweet words, but all facilities, then the path of progress will be. So nowadays we can see the age of Kali is taking a very nasty turn. And especially in Western countries, in England, in Western Europe, and in America. Very, very nasty turn. That instead of having organization, orderliness, cleanliness, and respect for law and order, the American civilization, the American government is promoting disunity, disorganization, promoting filth, is promoting gender politics, identity politics, and so on and so forth. So it's becoming very nasty. And thinkers, people who think, people who follow some sort of ideals based on religious principles, are actually being sidelined. And if you look at what's happening now, it's going to take a really, really nasty turn in the next 10, 15 years to come. Because people have not been going to church, people have not been practicing, and drug addiction, illicit sex, meat eating has come to a point where it is practically unbearable. So human society has reached a crossroads that is very difficult. When you ask, nowadays, when people are asked to say what is a woman, they can't describe what is a woman, because all this confusion with identity politics and gender politics is mixed up, and it is being promoted by governments, right? And people are not, so the identification with the body is gone to a point of pure sheer nastiness. So it's very difficult now, because no one is listening to any spiritual authorities. But there are some thinkers, some brahmanas always there, and they're speaking out. So hopefully people can redeem themselves. So someone can read the text. Okay, I'll read the text 25.
24.
Dear Lord, you never want the auspicious path to be destroyed, for you are the reservoir of all goodness, just to benefit people in general. You destroy the evil element by your mighty potency. You are the proprietor of the free creations and the maintainer of the entire universe. Therefore, your potency is not reduced by your submissive behavior. Rather, by submission, you exhibit your transcendental pastime. So the Lord is acting in a very submissive and humble manner. So they're making a point of this. Let us read a little bit to the next verse. So, O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award. So now it's coming to some kind of a conclusion in text 25. Said, O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons. So now the tune has slightly changed. The rishis, the sages are saying, you know, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. Right? So even though they've given the curse that they will go down to the material world, now they're leaving it to the Lord to ratify this curse. And they're putting themselves also at the mercy of the Lord for some punishment too. And they're saying we shall accept without duplicity. That means they're saying this in good faith, in clear, simple heart. That whatever punishment you want to give to Jai and Vijay, and whatever punishment you also want to give to us, we will accept. Why? Because we understand that we have cursed two innocent or faultless persons. Okay? So, Rasavan Prabhu, can you read the text 25 purport?
Text 25 purport. Okay. The sages, the four Kumarans, now reject the accursing of the two doorkeepers, Jaya and Vijaya, because they are now conscious that persons who engage in the service of the Lord cannot be at fault at any stage. It is said that anyone who has implicit faith in the service of the Lord, or who actually engages in transcendental loving service, has all the good qualities of the demigods. Therefore, a devotee cannot be at fault. If sometimes it is found that he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangements, that should not be taken very seriously. The cursing of Jaya Vijaya is here repented. Now the Kumarans are thinking in terms of their position in the modes of passion and ignorance, and they are prepared to accept any kind of punishment from the Lord. In general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita, also, it is confirmed that the devotee who faithfully serve the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in the service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously. Hare Krishna.
So any comments on this? Anyone? Or is it clear? So the two doorkeepers, Jai and Vijay, they were engaged in the service of the Lord. So at any time we should not be finding any fault in their service, because they engage in the service of the Lord, they are devotees. So when we have implicit faith in the service of the Lord, and someone is engaged in that transcendental service, we cannot be criticizing them. We have to be very careful of how we deal with them. Right? And the Bhagavad Gita confirmed this, that if someone commits a mistake, or even a gross mistake, and while he is a practicing devotee, he should not be considered a fallen person, but rather is still a saintly person because of his being situated in the path of devotional service. And because of our nature, of our former habits, we may act inappropriately sometimes. But that is in no way considered a kind of reason to exclude someone from devotional service. Now, do you know this verse in Bhagavad Gita? Which chapter and which verse?
I think 9:30 also.
9:30, yeah. Apichet sudaracharo vajate mamananyava sadhureva samantabhya samyagya vistohisa. One is engaged in devotional service of the Lord. If he commits an abominable act, he is considered to be saintly, because his resolve is to serve. Right? His resolve is to serve. Because that's just normal for the jiva to commit mistakes. That is our swabhava. That is our nature to commit mistakes. We are always conditioned and we commit mistakes. So by committing mistakes, if you're condemned repeatedly for committing mistakes, then we have no chance to go back home, back to Godhead. We are not condemned. We are considered, okay, rightly situated. Yes, Rasavan Prabhu.
Yeah, Prabhu, please, I want you to elucidate us on this. Now the four Kumaras have cursed Jaya and Vijaya. And by the appearance of the Lord, they have realized actually Jaya and Vijaya committed no fault. And they are servants of the Lord. In this way, since the curse has not yet taken effect, can't the curse be revoked?
Yeah, it's still a hypothetical question, but the thing is, the Lord will not interfere in something that has been caused by a Brahmana. He will not disrespect and disregard what is stated by a Brahmana. And he said that. Otherwise, the whole world will be brought to ruination. There's a principle of respect to the word of the Brahmanas. And he will follow on onto that. But later on, you will see that the Lord will say, this has happened also because it is my desire. So if you bring in the desire of the Lord, because nothing happens without the desire of the Lord, then that can be reconciled. Okay? So please, Prabhus, we'll stop here. And on Wednesday, we will complete this section, this chapter, hopefully, if you read it. I have some other service to attend to. And I see a lot of you also very tired today. So we will stop at this 16 to 25, which is only done 10 verses. It's Kumara's reply to Lord Narayan, their prayers to the Lord, and their submissive attitude to the Lord. And now the Lord will reconcile the situation. Okay? From text 26 onwards, we will discuss that on Wednesday. So thank you so much. I have to go. So, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thanks so much.
Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
So devotees, please, let's all omit and loudly chant Hare Krishna mantra to appreciate.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram,
Hare
Ram
Ram,
Ram, Hare
Rama.
Vacha Vidyaska Kripa Subhidyasi Vajika Patachya Vaishnava Antakuti Vaishnava Jai. Grace of
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Yeah.
Mr. Prabhu, try.
Yeah, apart from the fact that Prabhu noticed that most of us are tired, including myself, but the attitude of coming late to class is not too good. It's not good that our teacher waits for us. We said this so many times, and you know, Advaita Krishna Prabhu is very sensitive to the attitude and mood of the students. So please let us all try. If we have a challenge in coming online as at the time expected, it is always better to take an excuse earlier than one will know. But for the teacher to be on the line and then waiting, it's not too good enough. So please let us improve upon that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you all
Krishna.
very much.
We shall
Hare
be
Krishna,
together.
we have Jakras. We have Japas who are late. So
Yeah, your line
I
is
hope
cracking,
we-
Prabhu.
Japras.
He's saying we
The
have a
line is-
Japa class this morning. Japa workshop class in the temple.
Okay. So that worked everybody out.
Yes.
I'm also coming from pilgrimage, so I'm somewhat, and it's been marathon for me, so it's okay. We thank all of you for the dedication and attendance of the classes. Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
But
Hare Krishna.
of late, we have not been seeing much of Kamalaksha. What's happening? Kamalaksha Prabhu.
Yeah, he would complain that network, this, that. I don't know. There are certain things that, Krishna. You know, devotees are too transcendental. Sometimes just try not to commit apparat. It's all about attitude. Even if one is, we all struggle to buy data on our phone, to call our friends, to do our businesses.
Yeah.
We all struggle to get network to make communications to our families, our families in question, because our real family is Krishna. But then it's, there's no how you can say it, that it is not lack of strong desire to learn. Some of us are tired today, but because we have this, we have every reason not to be in the class. But because we have attachment to it, we have a desire to make it, see it happen in our lives. We give time to it. And like our spiritual master used to say, that somehow or the other, we always find time for something that is more dear to us. So he did a workshop sometimes, and he did it in Nigeria, he did it also in Ghana. And then part of that sections of that seminar was, he asked each and every one of us to think of who is the most dearest person to us. Then he asked another question, what is most dear to us, we should tell. And we start giving. Then he said, after we all mentioned, different person mention, this is dear to him, this is dear to him. But at the end of the day, he says this shows the level of our devotion to Krishna and how we are getting close to becoming Krishna conscious or not being Krishna conscious. So ultimately, our approach to Krishna consciousness is dependent on our interest. Somebody is struggling, but if his passion for Krishna consciousness is strong enough, he can actually overcome so many obstacles to make it happen. That's where I see it.
Yeah, in my opinion, in terms of finance, I rule that one out because he's ruling over an oil-rich state.
Yes.
What is not to be oil-rich?
Yes, you are making points. You are coming. What about the power?
So I don't think.
Power. Okay. Availability of power.
Yeah.
Power.
Okay,
Well,
electricity.
Madhuvan Prabhu, sorry to cut in. Prabhu, I don't see any obstacle because you are living in Nigeria that all of us are living.
Yeah.
You are a temple president, but you are a businessman. Apart from being that, you are a family person. You have so many responsibilities, but yet you find some way, somehow to make yourself available. So the fact is that one can give excuses. Krishna Prabhu will say that there are 1,001 reasons why we should not do what we're supposed to do. He said that to me directly. He said, and there is 1,001 reasons why we will do what we don't even are expected to do when it is in Krishna consciousness. So there is no excuse, Prabhu. Some once in a while, one may be caught up in situations, but the fact is that
it shouldn't be all the time.
Yeah, I could give excuses that I'm not available, I'm traveling, and then I will not be in class. And it will be genuine enough that, yes, I'm even traveling to the Holy Dam, so I can take that. Okay, I'm traveling, I'm in India. I mean, I was doing visit to holy places, but I had to abandon that, come back here just to attend to this class. The Holy Dam is a one-life opportunity. I don't know whether Krishna will give another opportunity to come, but at the same time, this is a commitment. This is a commitment that we have taken. And if we see it that way, I don't see the reason why we. Sometimes I'm on the road when I put the class on. It's just because of dedication. The other day I was at the airport, I was checking in, but I had to struggle to get it done. It's because of, so anybody can give reasons for not doing it. You have so many reasons why you shouldn't be here every time. So that's the way I look at it.
I will talk to him. I will talk to him.
Please,
I will have to talk to him. I will have to talk to him.
Actually,